She gave them 12 years of loyalty. They gave her a cardboard box and silence. But hidden in the fine print was a clause they forgot, and it turned her severance into a 7-figure warpath. This isn't just revenge. It's reckoning. And the woman they erased is coming back as a shareholder with a grudge. I knew something was off the second my Outlook calendar pinged with a mandatory sync meeting at 9:13 a.m. on a random Tuesday. Not 9 o'clock. Not 9:15. 9:13, like they were trying to catch me off balance emotionally. I clicked into the invite, and my stomach twisted. It was from Greg, in HR. Subject line, Realignment Strategy Touchpoint. That's corporate code for, we're about to screw you without dinner or a kiss. I walked into conference room B, and the air reeked of new carpet glue and betrayal. Greg was already perched like a smug gargoyle on the corner of the table. And next to him was Martin, my boss of 12 years, eyes glued to a lukewarm Starbucks like it held the meaning of life. He didn't even glance at me. Ashley, thanks for coming, Greg began, smiling like a used car salesman during a recession. I know this is short notice. My chair was already pulled out. They only do that if you're getting fired or subjected to a ritual sacrifice. Then came the speech. As part of our ongoing efforts to streamline operational efficiency and enhance cross-functional synergies, your role has been identified as redundant. Translation: we don't want to pay your senior salary anymore, so we found a college intern who's addicted to spreadsheets to do your job for half the cost and none of the experience. I blinked, once, twice, waiting for Martin to say something, anything. But he just nodded like a malfunctioning BOBBLEHEAD. Greg slid a folder toward me like he was dealing blackjack. Here's your separation packet, he said like he was handing me a party favor. You'll find the severance terms inside. Cobra info, final paycheck details, ... appreciate. That word hit like a brick of sarcasm and betrayal. I opened my mouth to ask why, and Martin stood like the meeting was already over. Greg will walk you out, he said, bolting like the room was on fire. Walk me out. Like I was a shoplifter. Like I hadn't trained 3 departments through 2 acquisitions and a platform migration. Greg gave me the corporate half-smile. I barely remember grabbing my things, a cracked mug from 2014. A picture of my dog Maple in a Santa hat. The cactus Greg said I couldn't take because it was technically company property. I took it anyway. Come at me, Greg. As I walked through the sterile halls, a single thought screamed in my head, louder than the heels behind me. They didn't just fire me. They erased me. Back in my apartment, I sat on the floor, Maple on one side and a box of my career on the other. She licked my hand gently. I'd always imagined I'd leave on my terms. Instead, I left with a passive-aggressive branded pen and a severance packet that felt like an obituary. But here's the thing about being kicked down: eventually, you stop falling. Eventually, you start crawling through the fine print, and sometimes, you find a clause, a loophole, a spark. I didn't sleep that night. Rage spun my brain like a tumble dryer. By 3:47 a.m., I had 2 tabs open comparing industry severance norms and a Word doc titled What I Deserve. Spoiler alert, it wasn't what Greg gave me. I walked into the next meeting looking like I was ready for court, not a consultation. Greg was already there, sipping Diet Coke like it was sacramental wine. Let's make this quick, he said. Greg, I started calmly. For someone with my tenure, the industry standard is 3 to 6 months severance. What you're offering doesn't even cover Cobra. Unfortunately, he smirked. This is standard policy. Non-negotiable. That phrase landed like a slap. I leaned forward. So after 12 years, I get 2 weeks' pay and a mental health pamphlet. Ashley, you're not replaceable. You're valued. Then why are you shoveling me out like I pissed on the server rack? Silence. And then it hit me. They didn't expect me to ask. They put a price on my silence and assumed I wouldn't fight, but I wasn't just angry. I was insulted. Greg slid the folder again. I stared at it. The NDA, the severance. The clause that said I waived all future claims. I'll review it, I said flatly, standing up. You're not signing? Not today. Not until someone else looks at it. Greg twitched. You're entitled to counsel. But nothing will change. If you say standard policy one more time, I snapped, I'll tattoo it across your forehead in Comic Sans. Back home, I purged my filing cabinet like a woman possessed. Old memos, manuals, pay stubs, all shredded. Somewhere between the 2020 goals and the 10th anniversary card. I found it, my original offer letter, Dated February 6, 2012. Yellowed at the corners. I flipped through it out of spite, more than anything. Until I found it. All unvested shares under the employee equity incentive plan shall become fully vested upon termination of employment by the company without cause. I blinked, then read it again. And again. Termination without cause. Greg's exact words. They hadn't fired me for performance. Those shares, the ones they never mentioned, every one of them could now be mine. A loaded gun. I googled employment lawyer equity clause until my eyes bled. That's when I found her, Brenda Choi, boutique employment specialist. 5-star reviews. No flash. Just facts. Her office sat above a laundromat, a tiny scratched plaque, a bell from an old general store. Yeah, I heard you come in. Unless you're selling toner, sit down. Brenda looked like she could sue you and then win at poker using your settlement money. Flannel, Converse. No bullshit. You're Ashley, she said, tapping her tablet. Let's hear the damage. I told her everything. Then handed her the letter, page 6. Last paragraph. Brenda's expression shifted. Tell me they didn't mention this in your separation package. They didn't. A slow, wicked smile spread across her face. They're going to regret being so standard. Something clicked. I hadn't just found a lawyer. I found my lawyer. They might argue it doesn't apply anymore, I said cautiously. They can argue the moon's made of cheese. Doesn't mean it'll hold up in arbitration. This clause is airtight. You were terminated without cause. The shares are yours. Do I want a check or vengeance? She asked. Can I say both? Brenda grinned. Now you're speaking my language. The next few days dragged by. Brenda was in predator mode. I was a Roomba with emotional damage. Don't hover. Let the hunter hunt, she said. By noon on Monday, I was refreshing the stock app every 30 seconds. By 2 p.m., I was Googling can companies void equity clauses retroactively. Don't read Quora, Brenda barked when I called her. But what if Ashley? She snapped her gum. The only way you lose is if you doubt me. She was crafting something devastating, a letter that would shake Greg's smug world. Her plan was layered. Quote the clause. Cite Greg's standard policy. Nonsense. Frame it as a breach of good faith. You don't have to disclose every benefit in a severance, Brenda said, but when you hide $1 million clause, that's fraud by omission. It smelled like willful concealment. I felt like I was preparing for war, but my armor was made of bubble wrap and rapidly evaporating. Courage, Brenda, she was forging iron. By day 3, I cracked again. I texted her. Me? What if they just ignore the letter? Brenda. Then I subpoenaed Greg and asked him to define standard policy in front of a judge. God. I loved her. On day 4, I drove by the office. Just once. Okay, 3 times. I parked across the street from the building where I'd spent over a decade, watching the tinted windows like they might confess. A delivery guy wheeled in a cart of catered lunch. Someone was celebrating something. Maybe Greg finally figured out how to CC an email. I stared at the building and felt it for the first time, detachment. That place didn't owe me anymore. It couldn't hurt me unless I let it. What it could do, however, was pay me. Handsomely. Later that night, Brenda called. Just 2 words. It's ready. I held my breath. I'll send it in the morning. 9 a.m. sharp. Are you sure it's bulletproof? I even cited a precedent from 2015 where a company tried the same stunt and got legally panned in arbitration. We're not just asking for the shares, Ashley, we're planting a flag. We're telling them, we see your game. We read the rules. And guess what? We're better at them. I hung up and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Hope wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy, thrumming. Real. It hit their inboxes at exactly 9:01 a.m. Brenda had it queued like she was launching a missile. Subject line, regarding equity clause and termination, Ashley Moore. No exclamation points, no fluff. Just a surgical, loaded phrase, designed to make some poor executive assistant spill their cold brew. I sat on my couch, clutching a mug of coffee I wasn't drinking, watching the digital clock on my stove tick to 9:01. Brenda didn't text. She'd warned me. Once it sends, you go dark. Let them sweat. Let them stew. You'll want to know everything. You won't know anything. That's part of the fun. Fun wasn't the word I'd use. Torture was closer. By 9:07, I had checked my email 6 times. By 9:12, I was in my phone settings, wondering if push notifications had disabled themselves out of spite. By 10:30, my dog Maple gave me the look that said, "You need to go outside before you explode." I nibbled on a cold Pop-Tart and tried to read, but my brain was soup. That letter was floating in someone's inbox like a grenade with the pin pull. At 3:42 p.m. A text from Brenda. Still quiet. Good. Quiet meant panic. Quiet meant back-channel threads and internal meetings. Quiet meant they were in a room, right now, reading the email again, printing it, underlining it in red. Praying ink changes reality. At 10:06 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Kelsey, former coworker. Quiet, soft-spoken, ran point on internal comms. Hadn't heard from her since my exit. Her text AM 2 minutes later. You didn't hear it from me, but something's happening. Boom. That's when I knew. The grenade had landed. Emails were being forwarded. Calendars were cleared. Legal pads were filled with frantic notes. Brenda's letter wasn't a legal threat, it was a mirror, and they hated what it reflected. 7:14 a.m. the next day. Too early for civility. My phone rang. Martin, my old boss, human wallpaper. The guy who once called me his work wife, and blamed me for not laughing at his sexist jokes. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity beat contempt. Hello, Ashley, what the hell did you do? His voice was panicked, ragged, like someone who woke up in a burning house and realized he lit the match. I leaned back, calm. Morning, Martin. Long time. Don't. Be smug. Jesus, do you have any idea what's happening here? Oh, I had ideas. You blindsided them, he said. That letter. It's being passed around like a virus. Legal's in a tailspin. I was pulled into a 6 a.m. with the general counsel, the CFO, and Greg. I smiled. And here I thought Greg only worked banker's hours. This isn't funny, Martin snapped. Do you know what those shares represent? Your clause triggered a reclassification of the entire equity pool. Finance is scrambling. They say your shares could account for 13% of the last grant. I whistled. 13%, huh? Didn't you just announce a new options pool in Q2? Exactly, you were supposed to phase out after your next review, but they forgot to update the roster and Atree's retention went through before the system caught it. Oops, I said. They're calling it an earnings impact. Might have to disclose it. There it was. Not just a payout anymore. Governance. And the CEO, I asked. Livid, he stormed out. Someone's head needs to roll. They're already talking disciplinary action. Board inquiry. Greg looked like he might cry. That part almost made me laugh. You can't mean to push this, Ash, Martin begged. You got severance. Why stir the pot? Because you treated me like I was disposable, Martin. But I read the fine print. You didn't just kick me out, I said. You turned me into a shareholder with enough equity to be a problem. He exhaled like he'd lost a court case and a custody battle. I liked you, Ashley. No, I said. You liked having me around to do your job for you, and details. They don't care if you ignore them, they're still true. I ended the call. The email came next. Request for discussion and clarification. Equity agreement. Translation, please come in before you legally dismantle us. Brenda, read it twice. Out loud, in her fake sweet preschool teacher voice. I love how they're calling it a discussion, she said. They heard the whistle. Saw the smoke. Still stood on the tracks. We set the meeting for Friday. Same boardroom. Same fuchsia plant in the hallway. Only this time, I wasn't escorted. I wasn't invisible. I was expected. Brenda wore navy. I wore black. Not funeral black, consequential black. Inside, 6 people at the table, 2 against the wall. At the head, CEO Dan Fork. Greg too. He looked like someone had replaced his blood with LaCroix. Ashley, thank you for coming, Dan said. We appreciate the chance to speak. Brenda dropped her binder like a gavel. Let's talk about this standard policy you love so much. She projected the clause behind us, highlighted, underlined, annotated like scripture. All unvested shares shall become fully vested upon termination without cause. I didn't see that clause. Greg, STAMMERED. Brenda tapped her pen. Yet here it is, in her original signed contract. Which supersedes your lazy templates, unless your definition of good faith includes omission of million-dollar clauses. We're not here to debate, Dan said. We want to make this right. Brenda smiled, then acknowledged the shares vested. The moment you fired her. One lawyer, perhaps a buyback. No, I said, every head turned. I'm not here to sell. I'm not here to back down. I'm here to remind you, I was never your mistake. I was your blind spot, and now I'm your problem. Brenda beamed. Let me be clear, she said. Option 1. You wire full value by EOD. No NDA, no strings, just compensation. Pause. Option 2. A lawyer asked. She keeps the shares, becomes an active shareholder. File motions, demands audits, demands board minutes, Greg's credentials. And yes, all of it public. Greg whimpered. Press coverage, governance failure, bad faith termination. That's what investors will see. The CEO turned to legal. Draft the wire. No handshake, no apology, just an ending. We walked out past the same receptionist who once asked me to refill coffee pods. Brenda nudged me. They'll remember this one, she said. You didn't just get even. You got equity. When the wire hit 7 digits deep, I didn't post a humble brag. I didn't pop the champagne. I fed Maple a second dinner, and deleted every folder with that company's name on it. They erased me, and I came back a shareholder. Appreciate you sticking around. Legends of the Break Room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old manager spill their coffee in fear. You know that strange calm right before a thunderstorm. The sky stretches, tight with tension, the air electric and waiting. That was me the week after the wire hit my account, not celebratory, not relaxed, focused, like someone who knows the storm isn't over, it's just circling back. The money was real. The claws had hit, but I knew them. That building full of lanyards and false smiles didn't go down without trying to drag you under with them. Brenda warned me, you humiliated them. Expect a response. Maybe not today. Maybe not direct, but it's coming. I took it seriously. Switched to encrypted email. Changed all my passwords. Bought a paper shredder that could chew through cardboard. But what I didn't expect was what they'd come back with. It wasn't legal retaliation, it was personal. Wednesday rain pelted my windows like pebbles hurled by karma itself. Maple barked at something outside, her little body stiff with alert. I peeked through the curtains. A man in a black Audi, engine running, parked across the street for the 3rd day in a row. He didn't get out, didn't knock, just idled. Brenda had warned me again. They're not subtle when they lose control. Document everything. If you feel unsafe, you tell me. We escalate. I snapped a picture, plate visible, time-stamped. Maple is still growling, but nothing came of it. For days, until Friday, my inbox pinged with an unexpected name. Elliot Bram. Once upon a time, 5 years ago, Elliot was a systems architect I worked with during a brutal product launch. Late nights, pizza dinners, glances that lingered a little too long. We never crossed lines. We almost did. Then he transferred to the London office, and we promised to keep in touch. We didn't. His message now, short, precise, dangerous. Ashley, they're preparing something, NDA breaches. Ethics review. They're digging hard. And not just legal, personal. I overheard your name 3 times this week. You didn't hear this from me. Heart. In throat. I stared at the screen. 1,000 moments flashed. Slack messages, calls, shared jokes, a near kiss outside an elevator. All of it suddenly vulnerable. If they were reaching back 5 years, what else were they willing to unearth? Brenda didn't flinch. Retaliation. Textbook. But here's the play. We go louder. Louder. How? We go press. I nearly dropped the phone. Press, Brenda. That's what they fear. Sunshine, transparency. You have the story, the receipts, the claws, and the cash. You're David. They're Goliath with a broken knee. We set the wheels in motion. Carefully, not revenge - exposure. An exclusive with Tech Uncensored. The outlet that had torched bigger names with nothing but screenshots and misfiled patents. We gave them the whole picture. Sanitized names, redacted files, and an NDA-free whistleblower's truth. Ashley Green. The woman who read her contract and fought back. The article went live on a Monday. By Tuesday, it had 2.3 million views. By Wednesday, Greg's LinkedIn vanished. By Friday, a new name appeared in the company's HR leadership box. Interim, of course. Calls came in, not just media. Lawyers, disgruntled ex-employees, even shareholders. Brenda fielded each one like a symphony conductor, and me. I sat with Maple on the balcony, watching the skyline, one click away from buying a little cabin in Oregon. Far from boardrooms and severance folders. But I wasn't done yet. Because one more message came in. One I hadn't expected. Elliot. Again, can we talk? In person, we met in a neutral space. A coffee shop with more plants than patrons, tucked into a quiet stretch of Silver Lake. Elliot looked the same, sharp eyes. That half-smile like he knew a joke but wasn't sure I'd laugh. Ashley, he said, voice low, sincere. I should have reached out sooner. I nodded, sitting across from him. But you didn't, no, he exhaled. Because I was scared, because I was still working for them, and because part of me thought, maybe you'd moved on. Moved on. Not quite. More like burned bridges and rebuilt new ones out of steel. We talked for over an hour about the storm I'd stirred. The names are being dropped behind closed doors. A potential SEC investigation. Elliot had left the company a week after the article. He didn't want the stench on his name. He also admitted something I hadn't expected. The night of your firing, he said, eyes steady. I saw the email draft they were prepping. They were already covering tracks. He passed me a flash drive. Backups, server logs, timestamps. If you need them, something inside me, long coiled and tense, finally began to loosen. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about change. 1 month later, I sat in a glass-paneled office, not mine, a nonprofit law foundation that Brenda connected me with. They were drafting protections for employee equity rights. I was now their strategic advisor, because the war might have started with a clause. But it wouldn't end until the game changed for everyone. That same week, I got an email from a board member, anonymous, of course. 2 sentences. We never expected you to read that clause, and we never expected you to win, but I had. And as I walked Maple along the quiet tree-lined streets of a neighborhood far from skyscrapers and badge swipes, Elliot beside me, coffee in one hand, my hand in the other, I realized something. Sometimes justice isn't just legal. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's watching the world you built alone finally reflect your worth. Because I wasn't erased, I was rewritten, and this time I held the pen.